A waitress unintentionally spilled a cup of coffee on a customer while tidying the table. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air of a cozy corner cafe nestled on the busy streets of Maplewood. Sarah, a middle-aged waitress with short auburn hair streaked with gray, moved gracefully between tables, her uniform slightly wrinkled from a long shift. The cafe bustled with its usual morning rush. Clinking dishes, murmured conversations, and the low hum of soft jazz playing in the background. In a quiet corner of the cafe, a young woman sat alone, her fingers fidgeting nervously with her phone. Her pale face was framed by dark, wavy hair, and her green eyes darted around the room as though expecting someone, or avoiding them. Sarah approached, balancing a tray with a steaming cup of coffee. "Good morning, sweetie. Strong coffee, just the way you like it," Sarah said warmly, setting the cup down in front of the woman. "Anything else I can get you?" The woman, whose name Sarah would later learn was Elena, looked up briefly, her lips parting as though to respond. But before she could say a word, Sarah's foot caught on a loose edge of the carpet. The tray wobbled precariously, and in a split second, the coffee spilled over the edge of the table, splashing onto Elena and soaking a napkin beneath her trembling hands. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," Sarah exclaimed, her cheeks flushing as she scrambled to grab napkins from her apron pocket. "I can't believe I did that. I'll clean this up right away." Elena flinched but said nothing, her wide eyes locking onto Sarah's with a flicker of relief. She seemed oddly calm, considering the situation. As Sarah wiped at the table, her gaze fell on the napkin beneath the spilled coffee. Written in hurried, shaky handwriting was a single word: help. Sarah froze, her breath catching in her throat. Slowly, she glanced up at Elena, who met her gaze with an intensity that made Sarah's heart skip a beat. The young woman subtly brought a finger to her lips, silently begging Sarah for discretion. "I'll grab some fresh napkins," Sarah muttered, her voice barely steady as she stood. Her mind raced as she walked toward the counter. Who was this woman? Why had she written that word? And most importantly, who or what was she so afraid of? As Sarah reached the counter, the bell above the cafe door jingled, and a man stepped inside. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark leather jacket, his sharp features shadowed by the light streaming through the door. His cold, piercing eyes scanned the room, his gaze like a predator seeking its prey. Sarah glanced back at Elena, who had shrunk into her chair, her hands trembling in her lap. The tension in the air was palpable. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steadied herself and approached the man with a forced smile. "Welcome to Maplewood Cafe. Can I get you anything?" she asked, her voice cheerful but strained. "I'm looking for someone," the man said curtly, his deep voice sending a chill down Sarah's spine. "Young woman, dark hair, she might be here." Sarah hesitated, glancing at Elena out of the corner of her eye. She said, feigning thoughtfulness. "I think I saw someone like that earlier, but she left a while ago, said she was heading to the park." The man's sharp eyes narrowed, suspicion etched into his face. "You're sure?" "Pretty sure," Sarah replied, forcing a light laugh. She didn't finish her coffee, though. Guess she was in a hurry. The man grunted and turned toward the door, muttering, "Thanks." As the bell jingled behind him, Sarah exhaled deeply, her knees feeling weak. Wasting no time, she walked quickly to Elena's table. "Bathroom," she whispered, leaning close as though she were cleaning the table. "Go there now. I'll handle him." Elena hesitated, her eyes filling with gratitude and fear. She nodded slightly and rose, her movements calm and measured, before disappearing into the restroom. Sarah's heart pounded as she returned to the counter, trying to maintain an air of normalcy. The man could come back at any moment. What had she just involved herself in? And what was Elena running from? Little did Sarah know, this was only the beginning. The cafe was unusually quiet after the man's departure, but Sarah's pulse raced like a drumbeat in her ears. The faint hum of conversation from other customers seemed distant and unimportant. Her mind fixated on Elena's trembling hands, the word "help" scrawled on the napkin, and the menacing figure of the man in the leather jacket. Sarah slipped into the bathroom, her nerves on edge. She found Elena standing against the far wall, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as though holding herself together. "He's gone for now," Sarah whispered, locking the bathroom door behind her. "But we don't have much time. Who was that? Why is he after you?" Elena's green eyes darted to Sarah, brimming with fear. She hesitated, biting her lip as though weighing how much to reveal. "His name is Vincent," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "He works for someone powerful. I found out something I wasn't supposed to. If they catch me, I don't think I'll make it out alive." Sarah's breath hitched, the weight of Elena's words settled like a heavy stone in her chest. "Okay," she said, her voice steadied despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "You're coming with me. We're getting out of here." Elena shook her head. "No, it's too dangerous. You've already done enough. I can't put you in any more danger." Sarah reached out and gripped Elena's arm, gently but firmly. "Listen to me. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not about to let you walk out there alone. We're in this together now." Elena hesitated, but eventually nodded, her shoulders relaxing just a fraction. As the two women slipped out of the bathroom, Sarah scanned the cafe. The coast seemed clear, but her instincts told her not to linger. She grabbed her car keys from behind the counter and gestured for Elena to follow her. "Keep your head down," Sarah whispered as they exited through the back door, stepping into the alley behind the cafe. Her car, an old but reliable sedan, was parked just a few feet away. The air outside was crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain and asphalt. Sarah fumbled with her keys, her fingers trembling as she unlocked the car. "Get in," she urged, holding the passenger door open for Elena. Elena slid into the seat, her hands gripping her knees. Sarah rushed to the driver's side and turned the key in the ignition. The car sputtered to life, its old engine grumbling in protest. But just as Sarah shifted into gear, a shadow appeared at the mouth of the alley. Vincent stood there, his piercing eyes locking onto them like a hawk spotting its prey. "Huh, there," he barked, breaking into a sprint toward the car. "Hold on," Sarah shouted, slamming her foot on the gas pedal. The sedan lurched forward, tires screeching as it sped out of the alley and onto the main road. Behind them, Vincent leaped into a sleek black car parked nearby, the roar of its engine signaling the start of a high-speed chase. The streets of Maplewood blurred as Sarah weaved through traffic, her hands gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled determination. Horns blared as she swerved to avoid other cars, and Elena clung to the dashboard, her face pale. "It's right behind us!" Elena shouted, glancing at the side mirror. The black car closed the gap with frightening ease, its headlights gleaming like a predator's eyes. Sarah's mind raced. The sedate streets of her small town offered few escape routes, and her old sedan was no match for Vincent's powerful vehicle. She turned sharply onto a side street, the car skidding dangerously as tires screeched against the pavement. "Do you know any place we can hide?" Sarah asked, her voice strained. "There's a warehouse district a few miles away," Elena said. "It's abandoned. He won't expect us to go there." Sarah nodded, her jaw set with determination. She veered onto a narrow alley, cutting through a maze of back streets in an attempt to shake their pursuer. But Vincent's car appeared at every turn, relentless and unyielding. As they approached the warehouse district, Sarah spotted an open lot ahead. "Hold on," she warned, slamming on the brakes and yanking the wheel. The sedan skidded into the lot, kicking up a cloud of dust as Sarah maneuvered behind a row of rusted shipping containers. She killed the engine, plunging them into silence. "Stay down," Sarah whispered, ducking below the dashboard. Alina followed suit, her breathing shallow. Through the rearview mirror, Sarah saw Vincent's car slow as it entered the lot. Its headlights scanned the area, sweeping over the containers like searchlights. The rumble of the engine grew louder, closer, until it stopped just feet away from their hiding spot. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She held her breath, praying the dust cloud would mask their presence. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as they waited in suffocating silence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Vincent's car revved and drove off, its taillights disappearing into the night. Sarah exhaled shakily, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. I think he's gone. For now. Alina looked at her, tears glistening in her eyes. "You risked everything to help me," she said, her voice breaking. "Why?" Sarah managed a small, wry smile. "Because you needed help, and someone once told me if you can do something good for someone else, you should." Alina's lip quivered, but she nodded, her gratitude unspoken, yet palpable. "We can't stay here," Sarah said, restarting the car. "We need a plan." As the sedan pulled away from the lot, the two women knew their escape was far from over. But for now, they had each other, and the faintest glimmer of hope. The night enveloped the town as Sarah and Elena sped out of the warehouse district, their breaths shallow, hearts pounding. The headlights from the sedan cast long shadows on the deserted streets, flickering against weathered buildings. Sarah's mind raced, weighing the risks of their next move. "Where do we go now?" Elena asked, her voice shaking, but steadying with each word. Sarah glanced at her, determination etched across her face. "I have an old friend, Ezekiel. He's a detective in Millhaven, a few towns over. If anyone can help us, it's him." Elena hesitated but nodded. "Do you trust him?" "With my life," Sarah replied, her voice firm. "But we need to stay under the radar until we reach him." The two women drove through the night, the hum of the engine their only companion. The highway stretched ahead like a ribbon of uncertainty. Sarah kept an eye on the rearview mirror, scanning for any sign of Vincent's relentless pursuit. As they crossed the county line, a faint glow appeared on the horizon, the outskirts of Millhaven. The town was larger than Maplewood, its streets bustling even at this late hour. Sarah navigated through the traffic, finally pulling up in front of a modest police station with brick walls and a faded sign above the door. "This is it," Sarah said, turning off the engine. She turned to Elena, her gaze steady. "Ezekiel will know what to do." Inside, the station was quieter than expected, the low buzz of fluorescent lights casting an almost eerie glow over the space. An officer at the front desk looked up as they entered, his brow furrowing. "Can I help you?" he asked. "We're here to see Detective Ezekiel. Tell him Sarah Whitman is here." "It's urgent," Sarah said quickly. The officer nodded and picked up the phone, his voice low as he relayed the message. A few moments later, a tall man with graying hair and a commanding presence emerged from the back. His sharp eyes softened when they landed on Sarah. "Sarah?" Ezekiel said, his tone a mix of surprise and concern. "It's been years. What's going on?" Sarah rushed forward, gripping his arm. "Ezekiel, we need your help. It's life or death." In a private room at the back of the station, Sarah and Elena recounted everything. Vincent, the napkin, the chase, and the cryptic details Elena had revealed about her predicament. Ezekiel listened intently, his expression growing darker with each word. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair, letting out a heavy sigh. "This, Vincent, sounds like trouble. And if what Elena says is true, we're dealing with something much bigger than a single man." Elena nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "It's an entire network. They're corrupt. Police officers, politicians, even judges. I stumbled upon evidence of their operations, and now they want me silenced." Ezekiel frowned. "What kind of evidence?" Documents, recordings, financial records. I saved them to a secure drive, but I had to leave it behind when I fled, Elena said, her voice breaking. It's the only thing keeping me alive. If they think I've shared it, they'll kill me. Ezekiel leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Do you think you can retrieve it? Elena shook her head. It's too risky. Vincent and his men are everywhere. They'll be watching for me. Sarah spoke up, her voice steady. There has to be another way. Can't we build a case without it? Ezekiel rubbed his chin thoughtfully. We need something concrete. Without the drive, we'd need a direct admission, or at least a significant lead. Elena's eyes widened as an idea took shape. What if I go back? If I meet with Vincent, I can pretend to negotiate. I'll wear a wire and try to get him to incriminate himself. Sarah's head snapped toward Elena, alarm flashing across her face. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. It's the only way, Elena insisted, her voice resolute. We can't keep running. I need to end this. Ezekiel nodded slowly. It's risky, but it could work. We'll need to plan carefully. I'll provide the wire and stay close, monitoring the feed. If things go south, I'll move in. Sarah shook her head, her worry evident. This is insane. What if something goes wrong? Ezekiel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I'll do everything I can to keep her safe, Sarah. But Elena's right. This might be our best shot. Sarah turned to Elena, her voice breaking. Are you sure about this? Elena met her gaze, determination shining in her eyes. I am. I can't live like this anymore. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Ezekiel outfitted Elena with a discreet listening device, testing it multiple times to ensure it worked perfectly. He provided her with a burner phone and gave her detailed instructions on how to handle the meeting. As they finalized the plan, Sarah pulled Elena aside. Promise me you'll be careful, she said, her voice trembling. I can't lose you. Elena smiled faintly. I promise. With everything in place, they set out for the meeting location, an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. The tension in the car was palpable as they approached, the warehouse looming like a dark monolith against the starless sky. Ezekiel parked a safe distance away, setting up his equipment to monitor the wire. Sarah sat beside him, her hands clenched tightly in her lap as she watched Elena step out of the car and walk toward the warehouse. The sound of Elena's footsteps echoed through the wire, each one a reminder of the danger she was walking into. Sarah's heart pounded as she whispered under her breath, "Be safe." Inside the warehouse, Vincent waited, his imposing figure illuminated by a single overhead light. Elena took a deep breath and stepped into the circle of light. "Well, well," Vincent said, his voice smooth and dangerous. "I was starting to think you wouldn't show." Elena squared her shoulders, her voice steady despite her fear. "I have what you want." The conversation began, and Sarah and Ezekiel listened intently, every word bringing them closer to the truth and the danger that loomed just ahead. Elena stepped into the dimly lit warehouse, her every footstep reverberating off the concrete walls. The air was thick with the smell of oil and damp metal, and the faint hum of distant machinery added an ominous backdrop. A single overhead light illuminated Vincent, who stood in the center of the room with his hands casually tucked into the pockets of his long coat. His confident smirk sent a shiver down Elena's spine. "Well, look who decided to show up," Vincent drawled, his voice smooth but edged with menace. "I have to admit, Elena, you've been quite the slippery one, but here you are, finally." Elena took a shaky breath, steeling herself. "I'm here because I want this to end." Vincent's smirk widened. "That makes two of us. Now, why don't you hand over what you took, and maybe we can put all this unpleasantness behind us." Outside, In the surveillance van, parked a safe distance away, Sarah and Ezekiel listened intently through the wire. The faint crackle of the device couldn't mask the tension in Vincent's tone or the quiet determination in Elena's voice. "She's holding up," Ezekiel muttered, adjusting the audio feed. "But we need more. He has to incriminate himself." Sarah clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. "Come on, Elena," she whispered under her breath. "You've got this." Back in the warehouse, Elena squared her shoulders and stepped closer to Vincent, careful to stay within range of the listening device hidden in her jacket. "I don't trust you, Vincent. If I hand over the evidence, how do I know you won't just kill me anyway?" Vincent chuckled, a low, unsettling sound. "Smart girl. But you're forgetting something. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't be standing here. You know too much, Elena, and that makes you valuable." Elena's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Valuable? To someone like you? Don't make me laugh." Vincent's expression darkened. He took a step closer, his towering presence looming over her. "Watch your tone," he hissed. "You think you have the upper hand, but you're playing a dangerous game." Outside, Ezekiel leaned forward, his fingers poised over the radio. He's getting agitated. If this escalates, I'm going in. Sarah shook her head fiercely. "Not yet. She needs more time." Elena held her ground, refusing to let her fear show. "You're right, Vincent. I am playing a dangerous game. But so are you. I've made sure the evidence is safe, with people who aren't afraid of you. If anything happens to me, it will all come out." Vincent froze, his sharp eyes narrowing. "You're bluffing." Elena tilted her head, letting a faint smile cross her lips. "Am I?" For a moment, the only sound was the distant creak of the warehouse structure. Then Vincent laughed. A harsh, grating sound that echoed through the space. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But guts won't save you. You've made a lot of powerful enemies, Elena. You think this ends with me? You think you can take down an entire network?" Elena seized the moment, her voice rising with controlled anger. "That's exactly what I think, Vincent, because people like you always get caught eventually. You've made too many mistakes, trusted too many people, and now it's all unraveling." In the van, Ezekiel's eyes widened. "We've got him. That's an admission of the network." Sarah leaned closer to the monitor, her heart pounding. "But he still doesn't feel cornered. We need something bigger." Vincent's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of doubt. He took another step forward, invading Elena's personal space. "You're a fool if you think you can win this. Hand over the evidence, or I'll make sure you disappear without a trace." Elena stared him down, her hands trembling but her resolve unwavering. "If you kill me, you'll only prove me right, and the people I've entrusted with the truth will come for you." The tension snapped like a taut wire. Vincent lunged, grabbing Elena by the arm. "Enough of this," he growled. "You're coming with me." Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open, and a flood of bright light spilled into the space. A booming voice echoed through the cavernous building. "Vincent Hayes, this is the police. Step away from her and put your hands in the air." Ezekiel led a team of officers into the warehouse, their weapons trained on Vincent. The sound of boots pounding against the concrete filled the air as they surrounded him. Vincent froze, his grip on Elena tightening for a moment before he shoved her away. "You set me up," he snarled, his face twisted with rage. Elena stumbled but quickly regained her footing, rushing toward the officers. Ezekiel stepped forward, his gun steady. "It's over, Vincent. Don't make this any worse for yourself." Vincent hesitated, his gaze darting between the officers and the exits. Then, with a sudden burst of movement, he reached into his coat. "Gun!" someone shouted, and chaos erupted. Sarah watched in horror from the van as the sound of gunfire echoed through the wire. Her hands flew to her mouth, and tears streamed down her face. "Alina," she whispered, her voice breaking. Inside the warehouse, Ezekiel's team moved with precision, subduing Vincent and securing the area. Elena was pulled to safety, trembling but unharmed. Ezekiel approached her, his face etched with concern. "You did it," he said softly. "It's over." Alina nodded, tears streaming down her face as relief and exhaustion overwhelmed her. I thought he was going to kill me?" Ezekiel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now, and thanks to you, we have enough evidence to take down the entire network." Outside, Sarah ran toward Elena as soon as she emerged from the warehouse. The two women embraced tightly, their shared fear and relief pouring out in tears. "I was so scared," Sarah whispered. "I thought I'd lost you." "Elena, clung to her voice shaking. "We did it, Sarah. It's finally over." As the sun began to rise, casting a golden light over the town, the nightmare they had endured faded into the past, but the bonds they had forged and the courage they had discovered would stay with them forever. 6 months had passed since the dramatic events in the warehouse. The morning sun bathed the city in warm light, casting long shadows across the bustling streets. Elena strolled through a quiet neighborhood, her steps steady but contemplative. Life had taken a dramatic turn since that fateful night, and now everything felt different, safer, more hopeful. At a small cafe tucked into the corner of a tree-lined avenue, Elena pushed open the door to find Sarah and Ezekiel already waiting at a table by the window. The cafe buzzed with quiet chatter and the hum of espresso machines, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Both of her friends looked up, their faces lighting up with smiles. "Elena, over here," Sarah called, waving her over. Elena smiled, the warmth of their friendship easing the lingering weight of past months. She slid into the seat across from them and glanced around at the cozy setting. It was hard to believe that not long ago, her life had been consumed by fear and danger. The three of them ordered coffee, their conversation turning to light topics at first: new routines, favorite books, and upcoming events. But eventually, the conversation circled back to the events that had brought them together. "Hard to believe it's been half a year since that night," Sarah said, stirring her latte absent-mindedly. "Feels like a lifetime ago." Ezekiel nodded, leaning back in his chair. "And yet, it's because of that night we were able to take down one of the largest corruption networks this city has ever seen. You both were incredible. Without Alina's courage and Sarah's unwavering support, we wouldn't have gotten the evidence we needed." Elena shifted in her seat, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. "I didn't do it alone. If it weren't for you both, I don't know how I would have gotten through any of it." The conversation quieted for a moment as they reflected on how far they had come. Elena's eyes drifted to the street outside, where children played in the park and families strolled along the sidewalk. It was a scene of peace, one she had once thought she'd never experience again. "Things really have changed, haven't they?" she said softly. "Not just for me, but for the city. People seem lighter now, as if a dark cloud has lifted." Ezekiel smiled. "That's the beauty of justice. It doesn't just punish the guilty, it restores hope." As they talked, Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a folded newspaper, sliding it across the table to Elena. The headline read, "Whistleblower and Detective Honored for Exposing Criminal Network." Beneath it was a photo of Elena and Ezekiel at an awards ceremony. Elena chuckled, shaking her head. "I still can't believe they gave me an award. I'm just me." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with pride. "You're not just anything, Elena. You risked everything to do what was right. You deserve every bit of recognition." Their coffee arrived, and Ezekiel raised his cup in a toast to courage, to friendship, and to new beginnings. Elena and Sarah clinked their cups against his, their laughter blending with the cheerful hum of the cafe. In the months since the takedown of the network, each of them had found new paths in life. Elena had started working as a counselor for victims of crime, using her own experiences to help others heal. Her compassion and understanding had already made a difference to many, and she felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. Sarah, inspired by the events they had survived, had left her job at the cafe to work for a nonprofit dedicated to supporting whistleblowers and exposing corruption. Her determination and resourcefulness were making waves, and she found herself thriving in the new role. Ezekiel, still in his position as a detective, had become a beacon of integrity in the police force. He was mentoring younger officers, teaching them the value of ethics and the importance of standing up for what's right. As they finished their drinks, Sarah leaned back with a contented sigh. "You know, I've been thinking, none of this would have happened if it weren't for that cup of coffee." Elena laughed, shaking her head. "You're saying we owe all of this to my clumsiness?" "Exactly," Sarah said with a grin. "It's like the universe has a funny way of setting things in motion." Ezekiel chuckled. "Well, here's to coffee then, and to the extraordinary people it brought together." They all laughed, the sound filled with genuine joy and relief. Despite everything they had endured, they had come out stronger, more connected, more determined to make a difference. As the three friends left the cafe and stepped into the crisp autumn air, Elena felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. The fear and uncertainty that had once dominated her life were now distant memories, replaced by hope and purpose. She looked at Sarah and Ezekiel, her heart full. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice steady, "for everything, for standing by me when it mattered most." Sarah looped her arm through Elena's, smiling warmly. "That's what friends do." Ezekiel placed a hand on her shoulder. "And we'll always have your back, Elena, no matter what." Ezekiel placed a hand on her back. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Together, they walked down the sunlit street, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. Their journey had been one of courage, sacrifice, and resilience, a testament to the strength of ordinary people standing up for what's right. And as they moved forward, they carried with them the unshakable bonds of friendship forged in the fire of adversity.